I've made plenty of mistakes hiking during the winter. Some had minor consequences, others risked my life. Winter adds many new dimensions to hiking. It can be an amazing time to hike during the winter, but without the right knowledge it can also be quite dangerous. With the 2024 winter season kicking into gear here in Australia, I thought it would be a good time to discuss a few of the lessons that I've learned from hiking and climbing in the winter. Learn from my mistakes and you'll have a much better time out on the trail. Safety is of utmost importance during the winter. A lot of the mistakes that I've made can relate back to safety to some extent. A lot of what can make you safe when hiking during the winter comes down to problem management. Hiking during the winter is all about identifying problems that can arise or will arise, be it in the next couple hours or the next day. You need to be thinking on your feet. What could happen can happen, and you don't want to be taking a gamble in the winter as it could risk your life. When I was just getting into winter hiking, I was very optimistic. All I wanted to do was climb the tallest mountains that I could in my state, and I didn't really think about much else to it. I just wanted to get to the top. One of those mountains that I learnt a very important lesson in problem management on was the tallest mountain in Victoria, Mount Bogong. Mount Bogong is a notorious mountain for having changeable weather and dangerous whiteout conditions. I didn't know how to identify conditions ahead of time, so when I went to go and attempt Mount Bogong this first year of hiking, I was essentially going in blind. Just above the tree line, the snow became unconsolidated and quite dangerous. I was walking along a sloped section of the mountain where there was this huge runoff straight down into a gully. Along this section, which was completely exposed, I was beginning to slip and almost slide down this section. I had no ice axe, no safety equipment, nothing. Pretty smart of me, isn't it? Unfortunately for me, it took me almost slipping and falling down the side of this mountain for me to understand that I was not prepared to be above the tree line. Moral of the story, know the conditions and be prepared. I wasn't thinking ahead, I was only thinking about getting to the top. I wasn't trying to identify problems that could arise ahead of time. I wasn't thinking about what the possibilities could be, and because of that, I put myself in danger. The next time I approached Mount Bogong, I prepared adequately and I had no problems getting to the top, and it was an amazing time. You may have heard of the saying, failing to prepare means preparing to fail, and in this instance, it is completely true. You have to remember that failure in alpine conditions can mean paying with your life or risking the lives of those who come to rescue you. So what are a few of the problems that could arise during winter hiking that you need to consider? You need to think about weather and snow conditions. Are you prepared for changing snow conditions on the route? Are you prepared for loose snow? Are you prepared for hard snow bordering on ice? Can you navigate through a whiteout? Can you change your route if you need to? Do you know the trail beforehand in case navigation gets difficult? These are some of the questions that you need to be asking yourself when you're out on the trail. Always check your local backcountry snow report for snow conditions and avalanche danger. In Australia, I use Mountain Safety Collective for my snow reports. They provide very detailed reports all throughout the winter for the Victorian Alps and Kosciuszko National Park. Some other problems that you could run into when winter hiking are hydration. Do you know when your next water source is? What are you going to do if your water freezes? How are you going to prevent your water from freezing? Do you have the ability to melt snow? Your campsite is another consideration that you need to take into account when winter hiking. Is the campsite going to be sheltered enough? Is there multiple ways to get to the campsite? Do you know that you will make it to your planned camp in time? What if you don't make it to camp? Are there other alternatives? As you can see just from this, there is a wide variety of questions that you need to be asking yourself, and you do need to be considering all of them, because if you get caught in the scenario that you haven't considered something and it does actually eventuate, then you could be in serious trouble. Trying to solve these problems ahead of time is extremely important for winter hiking, and it will save you a lot of drama and panic if you do. I didn't have the right layering system when I first started winter hiking. I wore cotton, I had a big bulky fleece jacket that made me sweat, I had no weather protection. Having the right layering system can make or break your winter hike. Now, I've made a full video detailing a complete layering system for winter hiking, so I'll keep this short and sweet. The main principles of a winter layering system needs to be moisture management, insulation, and weather protection. For your base layer materials, you don't want to be using something that holds onto moisture. You want to have something that wicks away moisture from your body and dries quickly. So a material like Polypro does this very well. You also need to make sure you have enough layers to keep warm, and you don't want to be using these layers when you're walking, as that's just going to trap in that moisture and make you sweat, which in turn will make you cold. And finally, you'll want to have a durable, weather-resistant outer shell that also has some ability to breathe and allow that moisture to escape. You want to be putting an emphasis on durable because you need to have something that's a bit bomb-proof for when the weather sours, because it will. Winter requires that you carry different equipment than you would for a regular 3-season hike. Large amounts of snow, changeable weather, and harsh conditions mean that you need to be carrying a larger variety of equipment. You don't want to be trying to minimize your pack weight for winter hiking. Now, you don't want to be carrying a ridiculous amount of weight, but you don't want to be trying to save on weight by leaving items behind or choosing a lightweight but less durable option. Durability and weather resistance are the two most important attributes that your winter hiking gear needs to possess. If the equipment is durable and weather resistant, and you can choose an option that is lighter than another, go for that lighter option, but you don't want to be choosing something that is lightweight, not durable, and not weather resistant, because it's just going to end up falling apart on you, and you don't want your gear to fail you. For winter, if you think you're going to need something, chances are you probably will, and the consequences for not bringing something are far greater than if you just brought it anyway and carried an extra 5 kilos. This is why you also need to pack and prepare for the worst case scenario. You can always study the trail, the weather, and prepare for what you think the trail is going to be like. However, what you think the trail is going to be like and what the weather is going to do is usually rarely the case. Forecasts can predict good weather, but the weather can change from sunshine to gale force winds in under an hour if you venture into alpine conditions. Local weather patterns can only be predicted, not guaranteed. The only guarantee that you can give yourself is that you've come prepared for anything that happens. This might mean packing extra layers, packing tools like ice axes or a crevasse rescue kit, or bringing a extra warm sleeping system. There is always much more harm to not having the equipment that you need than to have it and to not use it. In more milder seasons, you can survive by not bringing something, and if the situation arises where you need it, then it's not going to be fatal for you not to have it. This isn't the case in winter. You can never truly know what the winter is going to throw your way, so it's always best to prepare for the worst case scenario. My final lesson for hiking throughout the winter is starting when it's dark and finishing before it gets dark. Time is not on your side during the winter. The days are short and you don't want to be caught above the tree line in the dark when you aren't prepared. Every time I hike during the winter, I always have a summit cutoff time. This mainly applies for day hiking, but this is a time that if I don't reach the summit by, then I know that it's unlikely for me to get back down to the bottom before it gets dark. Early starts and winter go hand in hand. Pack a head torch and set off in the early hours of the morning. Where possible, I always try and camp out at the trailhead beforehand, so I can ensure that I wake up even earlier and can get more time on the trail. As I said before, this mainly applies to day hikes, but it's also applicable to overnighters, as you don't want to be trying to find your camp in the dark. When hiking during the winter, you'll always learn new lessons and find ways to improve your experience. This usually happens due to making a mistake, but with these tips, hopefully you don't have to repeat mine. Experience and failure are the best teachers, so don't be afraid to go out and try new things, but make sure to prioritize your safety. This doesn't just apply to winter hiking, but any other time that you're out on the trail. Stay safe and go and hit those trails in the winter. I'll see you on the next one.